This investigation started as a result of some overdose deaths that occurred about a year ago. It was in May of last year. We had a handful of overdose deaths that occurred very close together, and we kept getting word on the street that there was one supplier of the drugs that these people consumed, and it's our understanding that these people thought they were consuming cocaine, but unfortunately they were actually consuming either cocaine laced with fentanyl or just fentanyl, and that resulted in their deaths. As you might imagine, in the drug world, investigations are nearly impossible to get good information, particularly court-admissible evidence. So over the last several months, we've been working hard to try to get information on the particular individual that was alleged to have committed these crimes. They were supposedly being sold the drugs out of Freedom Gardens apartments. I believe it was apartment 2214, I believe. But again, over the course of months, it was a lot of work, and we weren't really able to get a whole lot of information. We saw evidence that led us to believe that there was drug trafficking going on there, but we couldn't quite get exactly what we needed to make a case. Fortunately, yesterday, detectives and investigators were watching the premises and saw a hand-to-hand drug deal between the individual that lived there and a gentleman named Howard Blount. And after they saw the hand-to-hand, they actually had this person followed and pulled over in a traffic stop and found about 43.2 grams of fentanyl on this individual. That particular individual, Mr. Blount, realizing that he was in a lot of trouble, agreed to assist us and give us more information about what was going on. And the information we got was that the person who sold him the drugs, and we knew this individual, Desnik Williams, he's obviously a black male. His date of birth is 1978, 7/14 is 78. He told us that there were a tremendous amount of drugs in the apartment. We quickly, the Vice Narcotics Unit, quickly wrote a search warrant, brought it to a judge, and that judge did sign that search warrant, and it was executed late yesterday afternoon, early evening. And in the process of that search warrant, detectives found a total of about 400 grams of cocaine, which is about a pound, about the same amount of methamphetamine, about 457 grams of methamphetamine, again about a pound, about 400 grams of fentanyl, which again is in the neighborhood of about a pound. Actually, it was about 442 if you include the amount that was found in the traffic stop, and about 20 grams of marijuana and THC edibles, not a tremendous amount, but as you can see, over there on my far right, your far left, we seized about $125,360 in cash. What's really ironic is Mr. Williams, as well as Ms. Frazier, she's also charged. They're living in the apartment, and it is actually federally subsidized housing, and we found documents where they were actually renewing that assistance, trying to get that assistance to continue their drug trafficking. In the house, we also found Mr. Owens, Andres Owens. He was charged with some misdemeanors. We don't believe he was involved, at least we don't have any evidence he was involved in the trafficking of the fentanyl and the cocaine and so forth. But I think it's important to note a couple things. Is the DEA says that about 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal dose. And of course, we don't know this fentanyl, how much it's been cut. If it's pure, 2 milligrams could possibly kill somebody. If it's been cut, maybe not so much. But I will tell you, the detectives were telling me that when they tested it, it popped immediately for fentanyl, showing that it was probably not cut a lot, if at all, so it's probably pretty pure fentanyl. And if that's the case, a pound of fentanyl has the potential, if it's uncut, to kill about 250,000 people. So there's a tremendous amount of danger associated with this. There was children in and around the apartment, so it was dangerous as well there. So it was a really, really good case, and I will tell you that the people of Brooksville who were concerned about these overdose deaths, I want to assure them that we're going to continue to work this investigation, and if we can link these individuals to those deaths, we will of course bring that to the state attorney and have additional charges. But I will tell you that Lieutenant Cox tells me that even before we did the raid and the search warrant, that Mr. Williams is probably looking at life in prison. And that's excluding the drugs we found in the apartment if he's convicted. So chances are he is not going to be able to, for the rest of his life, sell any more of this poison or kill any more of our residents here in Hernando County. What I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over, I guess, next to a representative from the state attorney's office. Maybe he might be able to talk a little bit, maybe answer a couple questions. I know this case is very new to them. They don't have much information on it. We haven't given them the reports, but I will tell you that we work hand in hand with them on these cases. And if we're able to make murder charges on drug overdoses, I will tell you they are quick to take those cases if they're prosecutable. So if you want to come up, and Mr. Lewis, if you want to come up and say a few words.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheriff. And thank you on behalf of State Attorney Bill Gladson. I'm Rob Lewis. I'm an Assistant State Attorney. I received a call yesterday while this was happening, and one of the main concerns that the detectives brought to me was, and something we deal with in a lot of these cases, is are these individuals going to be able to make bond? And if they can make bond, what assurances do we have that they're not using drug money in order to do that? So obviously it's offensive to most. If you think about it, you're selling drugs, you're selling fentanyl, super dangerous, and you're going to, either you or your people are going to sell more in order to be able to have you bond out of jail. So we certainly take that real serious. One of the things that we did on all three co-defendants, I filed this morning what we call a Nebbia motion, N-E-B-B-I-A. And what a Nebbia motion does is that puts the burden on the defendant that if they are in a position to post bond on any of these, they have to present evidence to the court that there is a legitimate paper trail, money trail source of these funds in order to get bond. In the state of Florida, if it's not a capital offense, if it's not a violation of probation, the law basically favors giving people monetary bonds. There are things we can do, such as a Nebbia motion, to make sure that those funds are not ill-gotten. Additionally, on Mr. Williams, this afternoon we filed a motion for pretrial detention. And what that does is there's a specific statute on point in the state of Florida that says if you meet certain criteria, regardless of whether it's a capital offense or violation or what have you, that the court can hold you without bond. And so we are asking that the judge to hold Mr. Williams without bond. The judge at first appearance held Mr. Williams and his wife on no bond on the trafficking offenses. Mr. Williams we have a hearing tomorrow afternoon in front of Judge Merritt, who's going to be hearing these cases, to hear both the Nebbia motions as well as the motion for pretrial detention. They probably have to get attorneys appointed. We'll see if they're going to get the public defender, regional counsel, private counsel. They can do any of that, but we're going to be ready to go to establish that Mr. Williams specifically does not need to see the light of day. And so that's where we are in this. And again, when we partner with I got the call yesterday, when we partner with the sheriff's office on cases like this, the conviction rates are usually through the roof, because when we partner together, we work together, we end up getting the results that we want. So Sheriff, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Another thing I'll probably call up now, Lieutenant Cox. He's in charge of my Vice Narcotics unit, and he may talk a little bit about this press that does quarter kilos or quarter pound Quarter pound, this press here, what this actually does is this presses the fentanyl into quarter pound blocks. So it is certainly not meant for individual sales, and I'll have him talk a little bit about that, and maybe he could even answer a couple questions about the case. Probably can't go into a lot of detail, but Lieutenant Cox, if you want to come up and talk a little bit about it. I know we talked at length about some of the nexus and how prices are going up and things like that. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, things you're seeing on the street. So.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Brandon Cox. That's BRANDONCOX. I'd first off like to thank the sheriff for providing us the opportunity to go after these kind of targets and providing us the resources as well as the support of the county commissioners and the state attorney's office. As you can see here are pieces of evidence. To my far right, your far left is going to be the cash that was seized on site. Also located here in the middle in front of this metal object is the fentanyl, and then closest to me is going to be the cocaine that we located. Again, it was about a pound of each narcotic. The item that you see here, like the sheriff was explaining, is a fentanyl press. So they're used to press what you see here is blocks of either cocaine or fentanyl, again used for either pushing large amounts of narcotics out into our community. It is important to note that the amount of fentanyl that we seized here today can actually kill more than what we have citizens in our county. So I'm really proud of the detectives and the hard work that they did throughout the day yesterday and for the last couple months of really just kind of going at it and being relentless with this investigation and being able to take these narcotics off the street. So on that note, I'll answer any questions that I can as far as the investigation goes. Again, we have continuing spin-off investigations from this, so I'll do my best to answer any questions that you may have.
How rare is it to find something like that press? What does that tell you about how sophisticated this operation was that he was running?
It's pretty sophisticated. Again, I believe he got out of prison in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, in 2023. So in that short amount of time, he's able to amass about $125,000 in cash, and he also has this kind of setup and the clientele. So as far as the press goes, that's not something that we see normally in our street narcotics sales. That's something that normally either cartels or bigger organizations are using to make sure that their narcotics are pressed down and easy to either conceal or travel with. So that's not something normal that we see on a regular.
Were you guys able to track at all, like, the source of where these drugs came from? I know a lot of times we see they come through the border. Can you talk at all about that?
Currently, we're working with our federal partners. We do have some good leads as to where this may be coming from, and we are still working on those, but that's an ongoing investigation.
Were you guys able to tell the families of any of the people who overdosed because they thought that this was just cocaine, that you finally got the guy?
Like the sheriff explained, this is something that he was that we received tips about, not necessarily that he was the particular person, and it's hard for us to prove that. So I don't want to give the families necessarily false hope, but we want them to know that we took all the tips that we received from the community very serious. We went after this. Like I said, the detectives were relentless with it, and I can honestly say that we saved lives in taking down those things, taking down these people yesterday. So hopefully we can bring them some closure later on if the investigations go well and we're able to prove that. But as of right now, those investigations are still ongoing, but I think we got a good lead.
How does this drug bust stack up, in the last year, over the last few months? When's the last time you guys have had, a sizable bust like this?
Sizable. This is probably one of the bigger ones that Hernando County has seen in a while. I do know that over my years, I got to spend some time in between 2020 and 2022 in Vice and Narcotics. The amount of weight that we are purchasing now that I've been back in the unit since about April has drastically increased. The prices were far more cheaper now than they were prior to. I hate to say that politics does play a game, but politics plays a game. I do know that we were seeing the prices increase when the election was going on and there was a lot of border talks. The prices on the street increased, and we already started seeing that. And from the information that we're getting and through our investigations, while we're taking a lot of off the street right now, it is starting to dry up out there on the streets. It's not readily available. So I think we're making good progress. We are going to have to increase our budget for purchasing narcotics because they are getting more expensive. So, but yes, that is one of the things that we are looking at.
And you said over the last couple of months, would you be able to tell the sort of the rough or exact timetable, sort of how the investigation went?
So as the sheriff explained, we had those the tips come in around end of May, beginning of June, and we started working this along the way. So I don't want to give too much detail to protect some of our investigative techniques. However, but we've been working it since June, and it really kind of just amped up over the last couple weeks. I do know that when we do take down key players, we see a drop in sales and a drop of different narcotic activity throughout the time. So we've taken down some players in the past that kind of probably prolonged this investigation a little longer than we would like, but this ended up coming out pretty good. So.
I think it's important to point out that, it's easy when you're looking at a specific investigation to think that that is all they're doing at any given time. And I can say nothing could be further from the truth. As you know, that we're doing search warrants on a regular basis. So to say the Vice Narcotics Unit has a lot of balls in the air with different investigations and trying to keep all those straight and make good cases that are prosecutable for the state attorney is definitely a huge feat. And we certainly could not do that. And I'll talk about the charges in a minute, but there's a couple other people I want to bring up here that I think is critically important. We talk about, Mr. Lewis, the attorney, talked about partnerships. And, we understand that our work product goes to the state attorney, and their success is based almost entirely on the product we give them. And so that's important. But even before that, even though the sheriff is a separate, independent, and constitutional officer, he or she does not work in a vacuum. They have to depend on partners like our county commission to provide funding. And as many of you know, Hernando County, we have a very lean operation. The number of deputies we have for this size population and the budget we have is much lower than most organizations. The only reason we're able to do the job we can do is because of the great people that we have here in Hernando County, but we still do have a tremendous amount of support weighing what the citizens can afford and what the sheriff needs. And a couple of those individuals are county commissioners, so I'd like to have them come up and talk a little bit about, because they are no less concerned with the safety of Hernando County than the sheriff is. And they understand their partnership in this, and I certainly got to give them a little bit of credit because they are extremely supportive of the sheriff's office and also are quick to reach out to the sheriff if they hear about an issue that's going on, whether it's something minor like a parking issue or something major like an overdose death. And I certainly appreciate their support in our endeavors. So I guess I'll have Commissioner Campbell, if you want to come up first and talk a little bit about your perspective on this, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you, Sheriff. And again, my name is Jerry Campbell, one of the county commissioners. And thank you to the Sheriff's Office, the great men and women that are in the trenches every day to protect our county. Thank you for your relentless pursuit of justice. As has already been mentioned, enough fentanyl was seized here to kill all of Hernando County. Our kids, our family are under attack. And that's why the men and women of the Sheriff's Office has my unwavering support. We have a duty to give them the tools and the resources necessary to do their job and to protect our communities. Public safety is priority number one. And this just goes to show you that, again, we have work to do. And to the bad guys that are dealing drugs in Hernando County, I can promise you that our Vice and Narcotics Unit from the Sheriff's Office, again, the great men and women, will pay you a visit very soon. So you're not welcome in our county. Our children are not your victims, and we're coming for you. So thank you again to the men and women of the Sheriff's Office. Thank you to our great federal and state partners, and even our local partners. for all the great work that they do. Again, unwavering support for our men and women of the Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
And much like Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner Hawkins is extremely supportive. I know he wanted to come up and say a few words as well. He's jumped in with both feet as a commissioner and certainly has gotten to know a lot of the people in the Sheriff's Office and a lot of our operations, so I'll have him come up and say a few words as well.
Thank you, Sheriff. My name is Brian Hawkins, County Commissioner, Hernando County. Currently serving as the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. And, my role here today is to come and thank the men and women of the Sheriff's Department from all the citizens in Hernando County. Like Commissioner Campbell stated, this was enough fentanyl to kill every citizen in Hernando County. That's an incredible thing to think about. One of the things that are sticking out to me during the investigation is the overwhelming support from the community that was affected by this back in June with the potential overdoses, linking to this investigation. And I think what's important about that is for people to understand that if you see something, say something. If you notice that things are going wrong within your community, to step up and have the support of the Sheriff's Department and the Vice and Narcotics Department to actually get out there and make a difference and clean up this neighborhood. If you can imagine, I think something that the sheriff said was important as well, this was federally subsidized housing. Could you imagine every day waking up, working 50, 60 hours a week, taking care of your family, taking care of your kids, and then this person lives next door to you, selling potentially deadly products to your kids and to your family. And I'm just unbelievably grateful to the men and women of the Sheriff's Department, and specifically the Vice and Narcotics Unit, that risk their lives every day to support and to save our community. So, another thing that's, the sheriff mentioned, our department does an incredible job on a very streamlined budget. As we grow as a community and we continue to grow as a community, I think it's important that we don't talk out of both sides of our mouths, and we talk about being conservatives and cutting budgets and doing these things, because as a county commissioner, our number one priority is the safety of our residents, and that starts with our Sheriff's Department and our first responders. And I think it's important that being conservative does not mean cheap, and that we need to make sure that the resources are there for the men and women that are first responders in our community and the Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Again, to reiterate the charges here, Mr. Blount was charged with trafficking in fentanyl. His current bond is $25,000. His date of birth is 3/30/75. Pretty significant charges there. Markeisha Frazier, her date of birth is 3/25/83. She has charges that include trafficking in fentanyl, trafficking in cocaine, trafficking in methamphetamine, possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, possession of a structure for the sale of controlled substance, and possession of hashish. And as was stated earlier, she has no bond. Desnik Williams, he is charged much like his wife or girlfriend, trafficking in fentanyl, trafficking in cocaine, trafficking in methamphetamine, possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, possession of a structure for the sale of controlled substances, and possession of hashish. And he has an extensive previous criminal history, so we are hoping that he will be off the streets. And as I said, Mr. Owens had some misdemeanor charges, and we don't believe he was involved in the sale and possession of that. With that being said, I think you asked Lieutenant Cox most of the questions, but if anybody have any follow-up questions before we go, I'll be happy to do my best to answer them.
You talked about just how deadly these drugs are. Can you talk about just when deputies go into a home like that, they have to be extremely careful to make sure they themselves don't ingest it. Can you talk about, what they have to do to make sure?
Yeah, absolutely. We do go through a lot of training, and depending on how the scene looks when we get there as to whether it's already packaged or whether it's laying out, dictates how we respond to that. And it's not unusual to law enforcement. We used to have some meth labs and so forth that were very dangerous. Now the fentanyl is dangerous. It's a different drug, but equally as dangerous. You know, you have explosions or overdose dangers. But they usually wear some sort of protective gear. At the very minimum, they're wearing gloves. Sometimes if we think there might be a chance for it to get airborne, they may wear additional protective gear up to and including something that's a hazmat suit. A lot is going to be dependent on the particular situation, but they are very cognizant of that fact. The real issue comes in because they know they're going into a place, they have a warrant. What really can be an issue is sometimes the deputy doesn't know that they're getting into that, or traffic stop or something like that, and they're maybe patting somebody down and they get stuck with a needle or they ingest some. So it is a dangerous job. It is absolutely dangerous, and as was said over and over again, you can't give enough credit to those individuals that are willing to go out there to put their life on the line to help protect individuals in the community from suffering a fate like those individuals did on the overdose. So, what else? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for covering this. We always appreciate our support from our media partners. We couldn't get the word out without you, so thank you all very much. If you need anything, if you need pictures or charges or additional information, our PIO team will be sending that out. You can always get in touch with Corporal Terry. He'll be happy to get you the information. Thank you all again. Have a great afternoon.